Hi, I'm Father Wesley Evans at St. Stephen's Episcopal Church, and today's episode of Faith Seeking Understanding, we're going to talk about evil. Yes, evil. Obviously, evil is something we experience in life, right? We experience evil family dynamics. We experience sometimes evil in people. We experience evil in our interactions, unfortunately, sometimes with friends and family, very often with strangers. We experience evil in institutions, in nations. We experience a world full of evil. And so evil is one of those things we as Christians have to talk about. If we claim we believe in a God who created all things, and a good God, and a all-powerful God. We talk a lot about the world, right? If we claim that Christianity gives some kind of coherent framework for understanding reality, we have to talk about evil, because evil is part of what we experience. So let's start at the top. What is evil? What is it? I mean, and I don't mean the list of things. You might be thinking, oh, well, do not murder, theft would be evil, adultery is evil, covetousness is evil. Yes, but why are those things evil? What is evil? Well, I'm going to throw a little bit of curveball in there, and I want you to pay careful attention to what I'm going to say, all right? So please, this is a part that could be easily misunderstood. In classic, traditional Christian belief, evil does not have existence. Evil does not have existence. Well, now how can you say that, Father? You just said that we experience evil in the world, and people and friends and families and nations. And yes, evil exists as certainly an experience. Evil exists, in the sense that it's something we can point to, and we can make a category, right? Murder is evil. Theft is evil, We can point those out. Then why, and this is, again, traditional classic Christian theology, this is not a modern idea, do I say evil does not have existence? Well, the analogy is that evil is like darkness. If you think about darkness, a literal darkness, turning the lights off, for instance, how do you make a room more dark? If I want to make this room more dark, how do I do it? Well, I don't bring in a flash dark or a dark light. I don't bring in a device that makes more darkness, right? What do? I take light away. I turn off the light. Right? What happens when I hit the switch, the electricity stops and the lights go off, and because energy stops, the absence of that energy is an absence of the light being produced, and that absence is darkness. Darkness is the absence of light. Light is made of something. Light is made of photons. And photons are weird. I recently read a book on quantum physics for dummies, and light is just strange. If you think religion and Christian mysticism gets weird, quantum physics is beyond weird. But anyway, regardless of that, light is made of something. Darkness is not. There's not a dark photon of some sort, right? Light is a thing, and darkness is when we take the light away. It's an absence. And that's the first important theological concept, that evil is the absence of the good. Evil is the absence of the good. Technically, the phrase would be evil is the privation of. Privation being the old word for that removal, that absence. Evil is the privation of the good, or the absence of the good. Which means when we talk about evil and when we talk about sin, And sin and evil go together. We're in the same broad category for the sake of this video. We are talking about absence of something. Perhaps another word in that sense will be the corruption of something. The corruption of something. And this is important when we start talking about individual sins. So think about the 7 deadly sins. Some of you can probably rattle those off fairly easy. Pride, lust, wrath, envy, greed, sloth, and gluttony. All right? So I've got the 7 deadly sins. You probably really know that if you watch Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, but it's another thing. So, 7 deadly sins, right? And we know what those, we can list those. But think about that, those sins, now that you understand that evil is the absence of the good, of corruption of that which is good. That means those sins do not exist in and of themselves. They are corruption of something good. That means that all those 7 deadly sins have an underlying desire that itself is not bad. For instance, the desire to eat. We need food to live. Eating is not bad. When it becomes disordered, when it becomes cattywampus, when it gets out of whack, when we place it above God or above other people, when the desire for food forgets its place in importance, when it gets warped, then it becomes gluttony. The desire for some level of stability, to have a roof over your head, okay? To have, perhaps to sleep on a bed. Nothing wrong with any of that. When it becomes disordered, it can become greed. The desire for physical intimacy, for sex, perfectly good. God created it. When it becomes warped and disordered, it becomes lust. I would even argue that the desire on some level to feel good about who you are. God, made in God's image, gifted by God, blessed with his gifts, called to some specific purpose, becomes disordered, becomes pride. And we could go into minute detail over all the 7 deadly sins, but in the end of the day, remember, when we're talking about sin, we're talking about the corruption of something good, the absence of light, the absence of the good in something, the privation, and not just committing an individual act, okay? And that last part is going to be important when I do some series on salvation, because we're going to talk about, this has implications for the way we view salvation as well. But the point is that evil is a privation of the good, and sin in our own life is a corruption of some good desire. Which is why the counter virtues, which I'll have to do another video on, the counter virtues, those which balance that sin out, are really like taking something warped and straightening back out to where it should be. It's not eliminating desire, it's purifying desire. It's fixing a good desire, okay? It's not just plain getting rid of it. Another theological principle, which is on another video that I did, in fact, the last one, grace perfects nature, it does not destroy it. Remember that video? If you do not, please go back and watch it. Grace perfects nature, it does not destroy it. Evil is the absence of the good. Those two ideas go together and form a foundation for redemption, for salvation, because it means God is not out to destroy stuff, but to save it. Because evil itself is the absence and the corruption of something, which means there's something there to save. There's something there to redeem. There's something there to purify that God can bring out of it. Therefore, he perfects it. It all goes together. There's certainly a lot more I can talk about with both of those, but at least for this video, that's one way those all combine together. Now, personal sin is not the only way we talk about evil. It's certainly not the only experience we have in the world. Traditionally, evil is divided up into 3 parts: the world, the flesh, and the devil. The world, the flesh, and the devil. What we just talked about would be the flesh, disorder, desire. But that still leaves the world and the devil. Well, the world, when we talk about the world as evil, we do not mean physical stuff. I don't mean this physical things. I don't mean that camera is evil. I don't mean this chair is evil. I don't mean the physical material world is evil. That would be Gnosticism, and Gnostics are wrong. So, that's not what I mean. When we say the world is evil, we mean this system of experiences. Have you ever been in an organization? Maybe it's a job, maybe it's an institution, maybe it's a school, that seems to be more evil than the people who make it up. You know, you meet Bob and Larry and Sue, and they're good, decent folk. But Bob and Larry and Sue and Jan and John and Jay and Sarah, none of them are bad. They've got their problems, they've got their foibles like we all do. But this group they're a part of just seems really bad. A modern word for that would be toxic, right? People talk about a toxic environment. There's something about it that seems worse than just the sum of the individual parts, than just the sin of the people that make it up. It seems like the whole institution is corrupt. That's the world. That's this idea that there's a sense of evil that can transcend the individual persons, that evil is not just individual, it's community, it's group, it's institutional. And what often happens is you can have in some of these institutions that go down far enough the line and become too evil that a good, genuine person can join it. And it's not that their coworker goes out of their way to invite them into the evil club, right? In fact, it's important to remember that evil doesn't know it's evil. Evil doesn't want to be evil. Even Hitler woke up in the morning thinking he was the good guy, right? He did. He thought what he was doing was good. He thought he was, saving Germany and all this. He was the hero in his own mind. All of us are virtuous in our own mind. Bad guys don't wake up twirling their mustache, putting on the black hat, and putting the, little badge that says, time for some evil today. It's not how it happens. It's not that this person becomes corrupted by some individual. Now, there are people out there that go pretty much down the route to almost being, mustache twirling bad guys. But no, it's just the culture. It's just the structure. It's the society. And it corrupts this person. So that then they become just another cog in the wheel of this institution that's grinding out some level of evil and pain and chaos and destruction. That's what we mean by the world. So we talked about the flesh, we talked about the world, and now what about the devil? I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because I plan on doing some other videos on demonology, so that will be interesting. I need to clean up the videos I have on angelology first, but I will be doing some on that. But in classical Christian belief, there's more than just the trees, the flowers, the rocks, i.e. creation, and then of course human beings and animals. There's also above us a group of spirits. The good ones we call angels. The ones that rebelled against God we call demons, and the devil is their leader. That's the really, really quick version of demonology. But the point being that there are, in Christian belief, a group of evil spirits that operate in the world. Now, I will say that the main thing they do is not flashy stuff. It's pretty simple. Fear, temptation, and deception. Fear, temptation, and deception. They want people to be completely afraid of things, afraid of people, afraid of groups, afraid of themselves, afraid of God. They want people to live in a state of constant fear over everything. Because if they can get people afraid of things, then they can tempt people. And they operate by a temptation. They don't make anybody sin. You can never say the devil made me do it. One of the greatest lines was from the Devil's Advocate movie, right? Where what's his name, who played Satan in there, said, all I do is set the stage. Most of the time, that's pretty much it. It's a very tempting stage. And that temptation is to lead us away from God. A temptation to follow our disordered desires. And when we follow those disordered desires, they get more disordered. And we become more twisted. And as several of us become more twisted, we create a twisted institution that twists and corrupts the people who join it, which are then tempted by the devil to be more corrupt and twisted. They twist more, and the world, the flesh, and the devil work like a giant circle supporting each other. So tempts to sin, and with that then comes deception, because the primary goal of the demonic realm is to drag you away from God. That's it. Okay? That's really it. Any other flashy stuff doesn't really matter. That's the point. If they can do that while pretending they don't exist, fine. That part doesn't matter. Fear, temptation, and deception, that's the way that operates, which means, at the end of the day, and I'll do some more videos on what we might call spiritual warfare. Most spiritual warfare is not going around casting out demons from everywhere. Now, I'm not opposed to that, okay? There is a place for exorcism in the church. But honestly, most spiritual warfare is against the world, the flesh, and the devil, which means most spiritual warfare is just resisting a temptation to cheat on something, resisting a temptation to gossip about someone, resisting a temptation to be nasty to someone, resisting a temptation to overeat, okay? Resisting a temptation to get angry, resisting a temptation to objectify someone in lust, resisting a temptation to think about yourself, number one, resisting a temptation to not care and love about others. That's spiritual warfare. After that, it's to certainly work to, as God's hands and feet, to redeem institutions and organizations and systems. And then at the bottom is to resist the temptations of the evil one, which most of the time is praying to God, Lord, save me from temptation, save me from the evil one. Send your holy angels to dwell here and keep back all that is evil, even wicked spirits. That's usually it. If you need heavier guns, you can talk to the church and we can talk about exorcism, but honestly, most of the spiritual warfare is living a Christian life, pursuing virtue, and shunning sin. And that's primarily it. So that's the short of it on evil. And I did not get to theodicy like I wanted to, but I feel like the video's kind of running a little long here. So I'll talk about theodicy in another video. Theodicy is the issue of, well, if all this is true, and how can there be an all-powerful God and an all-good God and everything that I just said be true? Why does God allow any of that? Why didn't God just zap Satan out of existence and do away with sin and all of that at the instant that it happened? I'm going to have to do that for another video because this video is already kind of long. But that's sort of evil and sin in a nutshell. If you have any questions, please comment them below. Be sure to share, like, and subscribe this video, and check out the other videos here. We have some more videos. We have at least one more video on theology. We have several videos on the Bible. And there are several worship videos as well. And please do join us live stream on Facebook Live for each Sunday at 9:30 a.m. for live stream worship. Thank you and God bless.